Kept you waiting, huh?
Survival has been a key element of the Fallout franchise since its very inception, a core theme of the game being humanity surviving despite the atrocities around them. The series is no stranger to showcasing this in its gameplay, with the original Fallouts being particularly punishing.
Not even the carrion eaters are interested in your radiated corpse.
Once Bethesda got the reins, a dedicated hardcore mode was introduced in Fallout New Vegas, setting the foundation for the future. On the 29th of March 2016, mode we love to hate was added to Fallout 4. It brought with it New Vegas' hardcore attributes, along with a few of its own. Now that introductions are out of the way, let's get down to business. Before I started my foray into the cesspool of torture and pain that is survival mode, I did what any sane, highly irradiated businessman would do. Plan. When I began preparing for this challenge, I was level 64, and in the time since my last video, I'd found time to complete the main story, Mechanist expansion, and Far Harbor. Alongside a generous amount of side questing, I'd reached the respectable level of 80, allowing me to craft an in-game build that would bolster me against the dangers ahead. Within the torturous confines of survival mode, every item has its own carry weight, from the tiniest bullet to the largest rifle, making my choices all the more important. Chems would be paramount to my success, as eating no longer restores health. Rad-X, Radaway, Med-X, Psycho, and Stimpaks are the cheat code, but I couldn't forget to bring plenty of water, as taking those chems increases dehydration. I grilled up plenty of food beforehand to save myself the hassle, the added benefit of some cheeky little stat buffs being a bonus. As far as weapon choice went, I chose to continue fielding the Overseer's Guardian. However, this would soon be replaced by a hallowed weapon, the likes of which the Wasteland has never seen before, but we'll talk about that later. My real ticket to victory came in the form of the Exo 2 Power Armor, a suit of armor so overpowered I felt dirty just using it. But an unfair world calls for unfair tactics. I went out of my way to kit out the suit with the maximum upgrade choices possible, even installing a helmet mod that purified all food and drink items. And after 15 hours of preparation, it was finally time. I'm level 80. I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready to do this. And if I'm not, well, we're about to find out. Upon arrival at the Nuka-World Transit Center, I zeroed the gunners guarding the area. Once the coast was clear, I descended into the monorail station below. Thanks to past experience, I made quick work of Harvey, so I have no tolerance for people who fib. Congratulated by a mysterious man over the radio for my violence, I found the power restored to the station, and found myself on a train to Nuka-World.
Yeah, but my offer. I only got a minute, so you better listen, and listen good. Name's Gabe.
Even after all this time, seeing the vista of Nuka-World's parks and desert outlands hasn't lost its luster. It shows off the world I was going to be exploring in a way that never fails to build up the anticipation. The moment the doors to the monorail opened, however, I'm immediately thrusted into a gauntlet of traps and deadly puzzles. Absolutely everything is working against me here, setting the tone for what's to come. Once the gauntlet is conquered and I have a few dead raiders to my name, I enter the bumper car arena and come face to face with Coulter, the overboss of Nuka-World. Now, this guy is tough, with a suit of electrified power armor that negates all damage when active, but he doesn't know that I have a secret weapon courtesy of Coulter's right-hand man, Porter Gage.
Ready? Go!
Quickest I've ever killed him. Once I ran a generational fade on Schmalter, or whatever his name was, I'm promptly informed that I'm the new big boss. And it's time to meet the lovely co-workers who I'll be spending my time with. Within the confines of Nuka-World exist 3 unique factions of raiders: the Pack, the Disciples, and the Operators. I do have to say, the visuals of these groups were nailed, and I especially love how they're all exaggerated themes of the base game's raiders. Earlier, I mentioned there was a gun that's reputation preceded itself, and that's what we're here to talk about. Upon meeting the leader of the Pack, Mason, I had the option to intimidate him, and, successfully doing so, I was rewarded with the splatter cannon. Hey everyone, Editing Limpwood here. Quick correction. I say splatter cannon, I meant to say problem solver. For some reason, I was using this gun for like 10 hours, and I couldn't get the name right in the script and in all the editing, so my apologies for that. Going forward, when I say Splattercannon, I meant to say problem solver. Apologies about that. Please continue enjoying the video. On its own, it's a completely viable weapon, but with a legendary stat that increases each subsequent bullet impact on an enemy by 15%, this quickly becomes a weapon that can't be ignored. Once my acquaintances had all been greeted, and I'd made my home at the Fizz Top Grill, Gage gives me the orders to take back the 5 parks in the greater Nuka-World area. All offer their own challenges and dangerous enemies, making for an even more daunting task. I chose to start at the World of Refreshment, a bottling plant turned informative park ride. This place is infested with Nuka-Lurks, a variant of the Commonwealth's crabs laced with potent Nuka Quantum. While those scuttling critters are deadly, the real danger lies in 3 Assaultrons roaming the vicinity. One blast from their eye cannons can turn even the strongest prospector to dust. My entire plan for success banked on catching them off guard before they engage their stealth mode. Despite being careful to avoid detection, I almost found myself facing an early death, but managed to pull through thanks to a healthy amount of stim packs and swinging like my life depended on it. Shortly afterwards, a Nuka-Lurk queen emerged to defend its home, but I swiftly reminded her of who the new big boss is. After that minor terror and major success, I strutted back to the Fizz Top Grill with my bag full of loot and stomach full of irradiated cola. Here I set my sights on my next target, a scorned place of pain and hateful memories, Kitty Kingdom. Why would I hate Kitty Kingdom, you may ask? Well, my loyal viewers, years ago now, I foolishly streamed a playthrough of Nuka-World. My foolishness cursed me to make a mistake that cost me hours of hard work, soft-locking myself by progressing through the park in an incorrect order. It was here, over 2 years later, that I refused fate and sought to conquer the park. Compared to the World of Refreshment, Kitty Kingdom is home to ghouls, and only ghouls. Meaning, I don't have to tiptoe and exclusively engage from a distance. So you know what that means. It's whacking time. In between violently sending these feral ghouls back to Adam, I cleared out the funhouse and sewers without any problem, catching glimpses of the elusive Oswald the Outrageous, the mysterious leader behind the dangers of this park. Hot on his tail, I tracked him down to the unmissable landmark of King Cola's castle, his base of operations. After tanking 2 hits from a rocket launcher trap, and promptly dispatching the ghouls surrounding it, I went to loot those launchers, and then... No! No! Okay, I'm gonna alt-tab. I knew this would happen, but I didn't think it would happen so soon. This is the toughest part about survival mode. It's the setbacks. Ugh. I mean, I needed to get off for the night anyways, so it's the game's way of telling me I need to go to bed. It was here where my heart sank. It had happened again. For some reason, my game had crashed, and for all I knew, I may have just lost hours of progress all over again. However, I'm not the same scared little boy I was 2 years ago. I'm braver, steadfast, and much, much dumber. After taking a breather and coming back the following day, I was delighted to find that I had only lost about 30 minutes of progress, storming through the irradiated horde of rotting ghouls with a sense of determination until I was able to burst through the doors of the castle and confront Oswald. This fight was made trivial by the sheer power of my equipment and build, and after a dramatic face down atop the castle's roof, Oswald concedes, and the kingdom is mine. It was here where I really found my rhythm, waking up at dawn in the Fizz Top Grill, prepping my loadout for my adventure, and setting off to brave the harsh landscape of the parks. It all just really grew on me. If anything, I would say this is how the first half of Nuka-World is meant to be played, carefully exploring these relics of a world long gone, treating every encounter with an enemy as if it could be my last, all before returning home to the safety of my base. It's such a satisfying gameplay loop that I'm surprised I've never heard people talking about it. From here, my adventures in Nuka-World continued without any real trouble. Dry Rock Gulch's bloodworm infestation was a minor nuisance for a juiced up war machine such as myself, and the ferocious gator claws at Safari Adventure were anything but in the face of my rifle. However, when I finally meandered along to the Galactic Zone, there was a very prominent change in the air. Every park has a prominent enemy type, and up until this point, I've only felt stressed fighting one. But from the moment I shot down my first Eyebot, I was reminded why this park always gave me the heebie-jeebies. Now, I was a seasoned veteran of the Mechanist schemes back in the Commonwealth, so in theory, robots should be no problem for me. But these aren't no normal clankers. This was the only park where I almost exclusively used the splatter cannon. I was terrified of these robots, and the sheer amount of damage they could dish out. God forbid they tried to swarm me like the ones in the bottling plant did. Tiptoeing through the park, I eventually found myself in the Nuka Galaxy ride. It was here, bathed in the neon light of centuries-old bulbs, with the echo of gunfire ringing in my ears, that I experienced my first and only death. Creeping through a corridor, I found myself above a battlefield rife with explosions, and robots engaging in mechanized warfare. The most deadly of them being a sentry bot at full health. By the time I rounded the corner, it had already turned its rotary laser cannon towards me. Knowing I'd have to retreat to the safety of the corridor, I primed a plasma grenade I'd found while looting the floors above. This was the apex of my mistake. I'd foolishly forgotten that grenades can be interacted with up until the very moment of their detonation, meaning they can be shot out of the air. So in the heat of the moment, whilst under a volley of laser fire, the grenade left my hand. Before it could even sail the short distance towards its target, a stray beam struck its housing, triggering the boiling plasma within to superheat beyond any livable temperature, bathing in already low health me in green, fiery death. Now knowing that it was a lack of proper explosive safety that got me killed, I traded in plasma for 7.62, and made sure to introduce the Sentry to the wonders of the splatter cannon. From here, it was a cakewalk all the way home. That singular death made me prioritize corner peaks and careful movement over everything else. And before I knew it, Nuka-World's parks were liberated. I loved this first section of the DLC, and I'd been so excited to keep playing that I'd almost forgotten why I harbored so much hate for Nuka-World in the first place. However, it didn't take long for me to be swiftly reminded why I'd come to hate it. Once the parks are cleared, a disrespectfully short congratulations is provided, before Gage ushers me off to speak to Shank, a raider broker who requests I mosey on over to the Commonwealth to expand the raiders' ring of control. This is where everything falls apart. The momentum slowly building while slogging through some of the toughest high-level dungeons the game can offer is crumpled and spat on by Radiant Settlement quests. So you're telling me that I've liberated the entirety of Nuka-World, a feat that the previous boss never even attempted to achieve, and I get asked to what? Take 3 settlements. That's it. And the worst part is, I had to leave Nuka-World and come back every single time to talk to Shank. So I had to go to the transit center, take the monorail back to the Commonwealth, leave the station, walk to my location, talk to one settler and convince everyone to leave, fight some raiders, then walk all the way back to the transit center, take the monorail back to Nuka-World for a 20-second conversation just to do it again and again. And quick reminder, that's still 4 loading screens, Bethesda loading screens. And when I go back to Nuka-World, I get to sit through that opening view of the park every single time. It's this demotivating, tone-deaf bid for time that left me with a disgusted taste in my mouth. And the twist is that it feels cooled in, tacked on to an otherwise solid first act. Now that that's out of the way, it's time for the grand finale. Upon completing Shank's final errand, he heavily encourages me to get back to Nuka-World as something big is going down. Apparently, Nisha and her gang of disciples are rather unhappy that I haven't been giving them any territory, and have decided to hole up in the park's old power plant. Upon returning to Nuka-World, I arrived to the main town lit with gunfire, and after making my way through the shrapnel and screams, I was able to rendezvous with Mason, Mags, and William. Frustrated with an itchy trigger finger from my rather uneventful exploits in the Commonwealth, I was delighted to hear that we'd be storming the plant and putting an end to Nisha and her band of psychos. So you know what that means. Cue the music! Once Nisha drew her final breath and I entered into the main control room, the soft beeping of the terminals and breeze never felt so deafening. I was at the conclusion, the end of the story, with a literal big red button in front of me. The button that brings back power to the park and ends this challenge. Once I hit it and saw those fireworks above the park, I thought I'd feel a sense of accomplishment, or at the very least, relief or joy, but I didn't. I logged off that night, and didn't return. Something happened, and I couldn't put my finger on it, until now. I was disappointed. I'd spent countless hours dwelling on whether or not I should play this DLC, and even more preparing and playing through it, and I was empty. But it was in those moments of emptiness that I finally had a realization. Nuka-World was a challenge, but it's also hollow. It's a facade, just like the attractions littered around the park, designed to draw you in and waste your time. This was a wake-up call. I didn't even complete open season. I think existing in Nuka-World is torture enough for those raiders. And I decided to make a decision, to leave on my own terms, to finish the real challenge that I've been doing this entire time. I chose to say goodbye. I slowly made my way back to the Commonwealth, passing by each of my settlements, my achievements, as I journeyed back to where it all started, to Abernathy Farm, where this all began well over a year ago. I powered down my armor, and stored my equipment in a simple steamer trunk. I knew that my empire was in good hands, and would prosper without me. I'd beaten Nuka-World, and I hadn't let it beat me. I built the ultimate settlement empire, and I'd solidified myself as a Commonwealth legend. Simply put, I'd done all I could. But this isn't the end. There's still a world of possibilities out there in the wasteland, and new stories to tell. So thank you, dear viewers, for being patient, and watching to the end. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.